Hi everyone, Sandman here. I thought I'd take some time to share a message to all the women listening to me speak, as well as the women that have yet to hear me out. I'm sure by now as women you see men going your own way as a growing threat to your attempts to use men to do your bidding. Men are waking up to our slavery and leaving the plantation that you call marriage. We recognize that our biology compels us to provide and protect for you in return for the opportunity to have kids with you. But now you use the feminist courts to take this away from us. And so many of us are leaving and never coming back. In your increasing attempts to take more and more power away from men, you are all now feminists, every single last one of you. But ironically, it's feminism that will lead to your undoing and eventual downfall. It wasn't enough for you to enslave men by having us labor and toil in the workplace, building roads, building buildings, and all the other materials that you find around you. Instead, you thought that you could be sneaky and convince us to vacuum, wash the dishes, take care of children, in addition to farming the land and building the man-made world. You wanted to take your responsibility of nurturing and building the next generation of human beings, and basically burden us with that as well. You thought that we could do your job as well as ours. And by getting us to do all of that, you would in turn slip into the ownership and management class in our society. You thought that men would be willing capital assets doing your bidding as you watched over us as the owning capitalist class of the bourgeois babes. But you don't understand that if you don't let men manage the civilization that we built, then there won't be much of a civilization left in a few centuries. With your increasing power, you're mismanaging us men and squandering the natural resources to provide for the consumption that you do, and that won't last. And your attempts to pass your responsibilities down of cooking, cleaning, and child-rearing have basically created men that are now capable of working, cooking, cleaning, and taking care of themselves. A generation of men that no longer depends on you. You shamed us into taking on your job, and we've done it. And now you have one less thing to hold over our heads. And your attempts to police the male mind and spirit in the physical world has forced us to create virtual worlds to evade you and escape from the suburban dystopia that you've created. So we've built the pornography industrial complex to loosen the grip that you have over us with regards to sexual fulfillment. Free and easily accessible sexual stimulation for all men that want it. And we're more visual than you, so visual satisfaction is incredibly important to us. Next, we're going to have the Oculus Rift revolution. I'm sure that this will lead to less young men wanting to be around you and give you their attention. But instead of seeing the social devastation that your attempts to further control and subjugate men are causing, you're basically pushing for more control over us. And now that you see your plans are failing, your subconscious default plan is to fall back onto neo-feudalism. You hope that your daughters are the princesses that are basically in the guard towers of the future. And you're declaring war against reason and rationality. You don't want to be told that you're wrong, and you certainly don't want to deal with the consequences. So instead, you're constantly shifting the goalposts to please your narcissistic egos. Look at what you've become, second-rate men. As a man, most of my conversations with women are dull and boring because you often lack the creative drive to think outside the box. You demand attention from men, yet oftentimes try to suck a man's resources and time away for your own selfish amusement and pleasure. And it's not your fault that you've done this to yourselves. In fact, you're genetically designed to do this. Most women require and oftentimes seek out male attention to break you of your self-destructive narcissism. A woman is her own worst enemy, and for much of history, the best way to protect a woman from herself was to force her to submit to a man's authority. But you've rigged the courts, legal and police state to free yourselves from male authority. You've decided to turn yourselves into wild weeds in the jungle instead of well-trimmed flowers in a rose garden. You're acting like children trying to sue their own parents after the parents sacrificed their lives and creature comforts to give you a decent life. You don't know shame and you're not capable of feeling it fully. So instead you shame us to comply with your insane requests. So where does this leave both men and women? I don't think you've realized how far many men are now willing to free themselves of you. Men are now building anatomically correct love dolls. We're building virtual sex technologies, and we're now starting to work on robotics and artificial intelligence to create a simulated woman. We're working on artificial wombs to replace your reproductive functions. In only one short generation, we will have everything we need to truly go our own way. And no, we don't want to destroy you or exploit you as sexual objects. It's too much of a hassle. And you've basically shown us our freedom through feminism, and I think that many men are truly grateful for this, but they just haven't figured it out yet or don't understand what happened. Ironically, you've given us our freedom by attempting to enslave us even more, so the joke's on you. And when we perfect the artificial womb, we'll probably get busy having sons instead of daughters, and we'll then divert our resources away from buying gifts for you like purses, shoes, and coats. And as you may or may not know, women consume 85% of the resources in our economy. Resources that can be put to better use building space elevators and ships capable of exploring the solar system and eventually the galaxy. There are roughly 20 billion Earth-like planets in our galaxy alone, and I'm sure that most men listening to this would gladly give up women entirely to explore the universe out there. There's no other way of doing this than diverting the resources we have given to you back to ourselves, where we can basically become a free species. As men, there's nothing we can't accomplish when we learn how to motivate ourselves and fulfill our desires. We have been held hostage by your mighty vagina instead of freeing ourselves from it. And at this point in time, there are basically three outcomes going forward. The first way is women destroy modern civilization and return us back to some sort of feudalism. And that will probably happen if we refuse to stand up against you. The second option, which most certainly won't happen, is for things to remain the same, and for you to get more and more power over men until we become your complete slave class. But I don't think that'll happen either, because we as men value freedom now more than ever. And the last option is for us to outgrow you physically and biologically, much the same way that we've outgrown you mentally over the last few decades. Going back to traditional feudalism is the only hopes for your survival as a sex. Destroying the industrial civilization and returning to the patriarchy is your only hope for maintaining power over us. That's why so many of you are now becoming women against feminism. Because you finally understand that feminism was never really about benefiting women in the long run, but it was always about benefiting men. You just tricked yourselves thinking that it would be in your best interest to train men to do your jobs, i.e. domestic servitude, while you kicked men out of our office jobs. You thought that all men did was basically work in offices, pushing paper around all day. So what happens now that you've become the great paper pushers of our society? You still don't know how to do what men do because you don't have the creativity and drive to do so. If you did, then you wouldn't need us. But unfortunately for you, there are no alternatives to having men around. But we men are now building technological alternatives to having you around. Toaster ovens, indoor plumbing, and robotic vacuum cleaners are all early replacement technologies for your household duties. We made life easier for you in the 20th century because we loved you, and you ended up throwing it back in our faces, telling us to vacuum and clean instead ourselves. We tried helping you, but you tried to enslave us further. We're now done helping. And I predict that in the future, new reproductive technologies will displace your place in our hierarchy. But of course, you'll probably still try to take away our reproductive and sexual fulfillment technologies from the men of the future. You'll probably say that it's ungodly and unhuman to use genetic engineering and artificial wombs. And you will claim that your bodies still have the same value that they've always had. But we know that this won't be the case. And you could even go as far as to make it illegal for us men to own androids that look, talk, and act like women. I've made it my life's work to make men aware of this, and I know that you don't want to hear it, but that's the sad truth. If there are extraterrestrials monitoring our planet, they probably think that women are mad for destroying the world so that they can have new shoes and new coats. And they would look down on us men and say, you're crazy for letting them do this. And you're aiding women by providing them these new technologies with which they're destroying the Earth. If I were an alien species, I wouldn't have anything to do with us unless we men figured out how to handle our females. As men, we need to start growing up and seeing love the way that the Greeks did, as a business contract between two parties that want a family and that want mutual benefits. Not a contract between a man and a woman and the state to take care of the woman so that the state doesn't have to take care of the man's responsibilities. The free ride for you ladies is almost over, and as we speak, the price of oil is crashing, and with it, the oil shale companies. I believe that in 10 years, home heating and cooling will become incredibly expensive as the price of natural gas shoots up higher and higher due to scarcity. And all those paper-pushing jobs will disappear as more banks close down their branches, and most banking is done online. Sorry ladies, but cushy office jobs will disappear as more people work remotely. And as companies continue to outsource everything to keep their stock prices up, women will lose the bulk of the jobs. Companies are already employing artificial intelligence to do some jobs. So you're thinking to yourself, I'll just get a job waiting tables. But now robotic chefs and waitstaff are now being employed in China. And I'm pretty sure that 3D printers and robotic chefs will replace most male chefs. But it's the women that actually have to worry the most because they get the bulk of the money from serving tables. And robotic waitstaff don't steal money from the owner, and they run on cheap electricity. And robots will probably be cooking in most homes in the next 5 to 10 years. More and more female hospitality jobs will simply disappear. Ladies, it's time to ask yourself some serious questions. What will your purpose and reason for existing be in the future in the context of relationships? You still have time to figure this out, but my instinct tells me that you'll basically wait for some white knight mangina to figure it out for you instead. Unfortunately, he'll probably have such a difficult time adapting himself to the future that he probably won't have time for you. So it's crunch time. It's the 8th inning and the 9th inning is soon approaching. Ladies, you haven't created this world, and men have. And men have created it first to help you, and then after shunning us men, have decided to build things to help ourselves instead. In the coming decades, we'll see which sex needs one more than the other. You started this war of the sexes by basically trying to turn us men into slaves in a world that we built. You won the battle for the first 3 waves of feminism, but each of your victories has sowed the seeds for your eventual destruction. I wish you the best of luck in the future, and hope you adapt to this world, and I know that some of you will. But something tells me that one of these days, we'll see massive numbers of homeless women in the streets, and men in the state will simply no longer care. Anyways, that's all I've got to say. And for the gentlemen out there listening, please follow me on Twitter or like me on Facebook to get tomorrow's video today. Thanks for taking your daily dose of red pills. So enjoy the rest of your day, and cheers.